guys, Michael Furlong here, sitting with Nicole Johnston today we're talking from the Real Estate Resource Group, and I'm really excited to talk to Nicole about her new venture. Nicole, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Very well, thank you.
That's what I love to hear. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about today. I think you've got a great topic and it's really timely, but this is part of the Kickstart series, and we're going to be talking a little bit about what it is that you do. But firstly, I'm excited to hear you've changed branding. Talk to me about that.
I have. So I was under the business agent desk, which I have recently purchased from my business partner.
Yep.
And in purchasing that, we have decided to rebrand to Trusted Figures.
Fantastic.
And so this is our new entity. So I'm super excited. We've got lots of things planned in the next 12 months. So watch this space.
And even though I've known you for over a year, even I just stuffed up your business name a couple of minutes ago. So smart move. I'm not gonna miss this one.
No.
Trusted Figures. Where did you come up with that?
Do you know what? We did a whole lot of research into the name and did a whole lot of marketing, just in relation to the industry and what we do. And yeah, so that's how it's obviously got some double meanings there, which is interesting and is also reflective on us as well. So,
now, just talk to me very quickly. You've got a QR code. It's the first time I've seen that being used.
Yes.
Where does that take us to? If I was to bring my phone up, it's not state government, Victoria. I'm not checking in, am I?
No, you're not checking in.
Okay.
It goes to our website, so you can get some more information about us and who we are and what we do. And it's how to get in touch with us. Although you can obviously see that on the screen there right now. I've given you the quick version just there, but yes, you can go straight to the website there.
And just in a nutshell, I see you've got the Property Me logo, you've got the console cloud logo there.
Mm-hmm.
Trust accounting outsourcing. Tell me about that in a summarized version, the elevator pitch.
Well, obviously, that's my specialty is trust accounting. I've been doing it for over 20 years, so that's my thing. And we're obviously partners with Property Me and Console Cloud. They're obviously the biggest platforms with property management and sales. So they're the main platforms that we use, and we work with those two companies. Yeah.
So for those who wouldn't necessarily know what the outsourcing of trust accounting is, it's you're doing this in lieu of having a full-time person in office, or are you complementing?
100%. So we can do holidays and sick leaves, or even reconciliation issues, but we're just finding now with these online platforms, you don't need a trust accountant full-time in your office.
Yep.
It's just, everything's much more automated now. It's much simpler. So it's much more cost-effective to outsource it these days.
And Nicole, Victoria only, or are you working interstate?
No, Australia-wide. So
Excellent.
We have clients interstate as well.
Fantastic. So the Kickstart series is very much around planning for 2021 as the second iteration. 2021's been a horrible year for most agencies, and hopefully today we find out if we're going to be out of lockdown in Victoria. In Sydney, in Sydney they're still in lockdown. In Queensland, it's sort of hit and a miss. The Premier's, I think, still in Tokyo. And in South Australia, they're unsure. And Western Australia is, I think New Zealand's closer than Western Australia for us. So, the half of the country has been in lockdown or thereabouts. And as we come through, it's been a tough year. You've got a couple of ideas of what agencies can do to plan. But what's been the biggest challenge that your clients have faced this year so far?
Well, obviously, COVID, the dirty word, has impacted us as an industry generally, but from a trust accounting perspective, for property managers, I have so much empathy for what they've been through this year, just with all of those rent reductions, managing those rent reductions and how to implement them, deferred rentals. It's been really difficult for them. It also has an impact on their rent arrears. So there's just so much that they've had going on, and trying to understand how to implement those reductions and manage those has been quite difficult. And every agency's had their own way of doing them, and it's been a matter of them trying to find the right procedures and systems to be able to implement those and to manage those, because it's not been a short-term thing, it's been much longer. And as we're seeing in New South Wales and now Victoria again, those rent reductions are starting to come back into play again. So they're starting to go through that process. Obviously, Victoria's had a bigger, more experience with those rent reductions in the last year compared to Sydney. New South Wales, sorry. So they're starting to go through that phase at the moment, which is good because we're able to help them, having seen what Victoria's gone through with those reductions, to help the New South Wales clients as well. Yeah.
I've seen a lot when I'm looking at different programs, when I go and do my audits, when I'm going to do my health checks. I see a lot of properties where they've got multiple tenancies because they've not been able to close off. They're either still waiting for a VCAT, NCAT, QCAT, whatever it may be. They haven't been able to close off. They're still chasing rent arrears for tenancies that have been gone for 2, 3, 4, 5 months. It's uncharted territory at the moment, isn't it?
It is. And there's been, there's a few tenants that I've seen that have gone into, massive arrears. And there's been a lot of feedback on social media about how to get, tenants, how to get around paying rent, which hasn't helped agents. And so they've had to work through those as well. So the Victorian agents I've seen have really jumped on board and trying to give those rent reductions to help tenants get through that phase. Yes. And to get some money is better than not getting anything at all, as some tenants have been doing. Sure. So, it's been a big challenge for them. And I think Victoria, at least in this current COVID, will find it a little bit easier because they've experienced it and they know what they've got to do now. Yes. And got their documentation right so that they can implement a reduction easily.
Nicole, if there was one or two things that your clients could do, or even an agency that's not your client but would like to be a client, if there's one or two things that agencies could do right now to sort of alleviate some of the issues around rent reductions or their trust account auditing, trust account issues, what would it be?
Look, I think it's really important that every agency has a really clear policy about how they're going to implement those rent reductions and have a clear agreement with both their owners and the tenants about what that reduction is. Sure. So that everybody's on the same page. It helps with arrears. It also helps with the property managements and their stress of not knowing what they need to do because they have so much going on. Yeah. And it's difficult because property managers are not just dealing with the financial aspects, but also the emotional aspect that comes with hardship as well. So it's been difficult. Yeah.
Well done. Well done. And you've got a presentation to go through?
I do. Yes. Yeah, sure. So obviously we were just talking about the COVID rent reductions and these are the issues that we've had, that we've all experienced. So, and these reductions and deferred rentals, and the rent arrears has had a massive impact, not just on managing those, but also on the agency's fees. So This has obviously reduced their commissions as well. So they found it really tough this year. But I think if they've got clear policies and procedures in place, they can help get through that and everybody can get some money coming through. And it just makes it easier for everybody.
It's a massive cash flow issue, isn't it, for the landlord or the residential rental provider? So it's a massive cash flow issue there. It's a cash flow issue, then it just trickles through to the agency.
Yep, 100%. So so going forward, so I think obviously in this particular time of year, we're obviously all getting ready now for audits.
Yep.
And so I was just going to talk to everybody about how they can get audit ready because, yes, we've been going through all this COVID thing and managing all of that hardship of what's been going on, but we also need to get audit ready. And that can we could have easily let that slip a little bit. So just want to give you all some tips on how to get audit ready and just go through a few of those things that can make for this to be a smooth process and so everybody can get that A+ result that we want. So hopefully everybody is on that electronic platform, the online platform, and is getting off or is about to get off those server-based systems. If you do that, then this process of getting audit ready is simple because it's all electronic.
So Nicole, sorry, just on that, do you still see a lot of clients with all of their software or all their PM software still on cloud on the server?
We are still seeing some.
We've still got 2021.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's surprising. There's still quite a lot. And I know Console Cloud has just gone through a big transition with getting their clients off the gateway system and into the cloud.
Yes.
And it won't be too long before they're looking at changing all those RP Office users also into the cloud. So if you haven't done it yet, it's something you need to consider, and you need to consider it sooner rather than later.
And we were chatting yesterday about the process with regards to that whole migration. It's not something which you do lightly. So it's not a wake up this morning and say, okay, I'm going to change property management software. Research, probably do some research. And then once you've done all of that, maybe do some research.
And then probably a little bit more research. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of planning to go into place for a smooth migration to happen, no matter what system you're coming from.
So I had my real estate agency for 13 years, and I had one software, which was Console Gateway. Now I haven't had it for a long time, so that was it. I'd never considered altering and changing. So I think it's not one of those things where you look at lightly. So if you're on a server base at the moment, you definitely need to move across into cloud base. So sorry, 100%. I'm taking you off track there. But,
that's okay, 100%. So not on cloud, get on cloud.
Sure.
And then to get yourself audit ready, obviously the first thing is to give your auditor access to that system. So you can give them just a read-only system. Really easy, just give them a login, and they can see everything. They just can't do anything. So the sooner you can do that, the better, because the sooner they can get online and get started.
Sure.
Second, ensure your trust account is reconciled. And that might seem really basic, but it's so common that you go in and people don't have their trust account reconciled. Ideally, you do this daily. But importantly, when you're getting an audit done, they're not necessarily just looking at the 30th of June and seeing that you reconcile. They want to see you reconciled today. So that is the 27th of July. If you've reconciled today, they've got in their minds, good practice, they're on board, they know what they're doing, they've got everything in order. So always be reconciled up to today, the day, and that's not necessarily just the day that the auditor comes in, but when CAV walks in, just out of the blue, are you reconciled? You want to be reconciled regularly, daily, ideally.
Yeah.
Number one. So secondly is bank statements. So every auditor obviously needs the bank statements. I would check with your auditor and just find out, do they want them electronically? Are they happy with just a download from the bank? Do they want an original statement? Find out what is their preference. Make a note of that preference so that next year you don't have to revisit it. You can just give it exactly the way the auditor wants it without even having to be asked. It's really simple. Fourthly, end of month reports. Again, this seems like it's really basic, but you need to make sure you've got every end of month report and everyone is signed and dated. I don't know how many I see not signed and dated.
Yes, I often speak with the Officer of Effective Control and I ask them to explain to me what the end of month report, what it all means, and they've got no idea. They say it just gets put in front of me, I sign off on it, and then it gets filed somewhere. Where? I don't know. And it's, I think one of the things that I think from an Officer Effective Control's point of view is you can outsource a lot of things in your business. You can't outsource liability. So it's 100%. Part of it's incumbent on you. It's also part of the Act as well, that you have an obligation to understand that you've got good agency practices. It's incumbent on you to actually make sure you can understand and read the financials.
Correct. You need to understand them, and if you don't, you need to get in touch with us and we'll help you understand them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I guess the most basic thing to check on an end of month report is make sure that the bank statement balances. That's the first thing I guess you would look at. But making sure you signed and dated them every month, and that just because it's an online system, and yes, you can reprint them, but when you reprint those reports, they're dated the day you print them. So you want to do them every month within those 14 days of the end of month and sign them. Now, depending on your auditor, they might be happy with a copy of an electronic signature. So that might be that you sign it, scan it, save it. Some of them like to see the originals. So again, check with your auditor, find out what their preference is, and make sure you remember that for next year.
Great tip.
Yep.
Next one, property files.
Property files. So this really falls on more of the property management side of things, but it's really about making sure you've got your authorities and your leases and all of that documentation that you need in relation to the property. And ideally, you've got this electronically and it's saved within the software. And if you've done that, then you don't actually need to provide the physical file because your auditor can then just simply look at them online. So get online, get digital is the end of that.
You're talking my language there now.
Yeah, 100% get digital. And I know it took me a little while to get used to that, you know, I don't know, probably about 8 or 9 years ago. And once I ripped that Band-Aid off, never look back.
Yeah.
You will not look back. So go digital. Next thing, employee files. The same thing. Get this electronically if you can. You will obviously need to have these stored more securely and not within your property management software, but you need to make sure that they're all up to date. You've got all of the documentation you require, you know, licenses, certificates, police checks.
Yeah.
You know, you've got your registrations with your relevant state bodies, you know, the BLA, the New South Wales Fair Trading, all of that sort of thing. So make sure you've got all of that ready for each employee. And if you've got your employee file ready at the time that you've engaged them, then hopefully that's all there and it's just a matter of handing it to the auditor.
Nicole, 2 things I find often when I'm doing the health check side of things that are missing, authority to act and eligibility to act as an agent's representative. You know, it's often I go into an office and I'll go through the employee files and I'll have a look and say, where are these 2 documents? And the officer effective control says, I don't even know.
I don't know.
Yeah. not I don't have them. I don't even know what you're talking about. Why do I need those? So yeah, employee files. It's an interesting one. You've got to get. Only have to do them right once. Do it when the employee comes on. Yeah. Exactly.
If you can, get a checklist together if you need to, whatever you need to do to make sure you've got all that documentation at the time you employ them, then you know that it's there and it's ready to go. Have it electronically, send it off to the auditor every year, it's done.
Should be part of the onboarding process. And the next one, agency license. I'm intrigued about this one.
Okay, so this is more about making sure that you've got all the registrations, very similar to employee files in much the same way, but it's about making sure your agency is licensed, it's got its registrations, you've got, it's amazing, I see these wrong ABNs attached to letterheads and things like that. So just make sure you've got your entity name correct, the exact wording of your entity, you know, so not trusted figures versus just trusted, for example. So, you know, don't have just part of your business name. It's got to be your full name, the correct ABN, just all of that general information about your company. So if you've got any of it plastered anywhere, letterhead, online, just make sure that it's all correct.
You're right. The management authorities, again, I come back to, because we're in a similar space. We don't do the same work, but we're in a similar space. This is what I look for when I'm in an office. You know, the first thing that I do, and it's free, go to the public agents register for Business Licensing Authority, download. When I'm going in, firstly I download, and then I pull out an authority. And because the authority will then match the lease, often it'll just be in a trading name. It won't be in a company. There'll be a missing ABN, or the one that I find interesting is where someone's signing management authorities that isn't linked to the business license. So, you know, and I see that often, you know, that they've come in, they've started signing, but they haven't been brought onto the BLA within the time frame, and there's authorities. And I say to the principal, that's not valid. It's worth nothing. Actually, you've got to return the fee. So yeah, great tips.
And it's also even within your software. So within your online software, you know, one of the first things we do when we take on a client is check the license that they've got registered in their software to their company, and is it actually matched their actual entity? Because quite often they're not correct. They've got different trading names in there, different ABNs. So just check all of that information and make sure you've got that right. Again, once you've done that correctly the first time, you don't really need to revisit it every year, but just have a spot check. If you've changed anything through the year, then check it. You know, done an update to your website, for example, make sure everything's correct.
Excellent. And the last one?
And the last one is just, this is the trust accounting side of things, is trust audit notes. So if you've made any errors of any kind, and this can just be simple administration errors, make a note of them. It doesn't matter how small they are, whether it's, for instance, you've dated a receipt incorrectly and you need to fix that date. Just make a little file note on it. Any notes that you've got will just assist the auditor, and you can't remember everything that you did 12 months ago.
No.
So if you've got a file note on it, then it's easy to remember, it's easy to look. Any ledger entries that you need to show. So generally what I would suggest that you do is you on that audit note, identify the error, the reason that the error occurred, what solution you can do to prevent the error, if there is, if there is a solution that you can provide. If it's a simple date error that you've just done a typo, then obviously that's just a typo. What correction you made, what date, and the amounts that you
Sure.
we're entering. So if you've got all that information in there and it shows the solution, that's really important that you identify that there's a possible solution. Is like if it's a really big thing, they really want to see that you've identified that there's an issue and how you're going to rectify it in the future, what policy, what procedure you've put in place to prevent it happening.
Fantastic. That's exceptional. That's almost like a mini workshop in itself. Correct.
It is a lot. So, I mean, look, the only other thing I would say to everybody is try and get onto this sooner rather than later.
Sure.
Get your auditor engaged as soon as possible so that if they do find anything, you've got time between now and when you have to have them in by to get any errors that they might have identified, to get them corrected, to show that you've made those corrections. That's better to have the audit in your audit report than just have a breach.
Yeah, absolutely. So, fantastic. Nicole, as we wrap up, how do people get in touch with you?
Easily. We flick to the next screen. So perfect. Get onto the QR code, get onto the website, but yeah, it's nicole@trustedfigures.com, or you can give us a call, 1300 103 207.
And you're also a partner at Propertymanagementsystems, so they can find your details there, and 100%. A console cloud partner as well.
Absolutely.
And one of the foundation members of the Real Estate Resource Group, Nicole Johnston. Thank you very much. I'm excited, Michael, for you for the next, whatever it may be, with the new entity.
Thank you.
And it's been a pleasure catching up with you this morning. Some really, really useful information.
Likewise. Thanks, Michael. Appreciate it.
Take it easy. Have a great day.
Cheers. Bye.